Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out my last week's episode 226 with Christian Celo Lopez. He is a cinematographer as well as a photographer. And on that episode, he talked about how he got into his business and why he got into it. And it was a really great episode, and it was the first one that I'd done in a little bit. So you guys should go check that out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carroll Connection or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up. If you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at the Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. As well as plugging the 5 Pillars to Creating Meaningful Life. If you want to buy the book, you can only get it on Amazon. And if you get the book and you like the book, please submit the review on Amazon. It goes a long way in the algorithm. So that brings me to today's episode 227, bringing in my guest, Lincoln.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
I really like your videos, and I really enjoy the authenticity of what you bring to it. So I'm really excited to see what we talk about today.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And just kind of tell everyone who you are. Like, if you want to do first and last name, you can, and what you're doing currently.
Yeah, so my name's Lincoln. I'm the owner of a jewelry company called Arcwood Jewelry, and really, really about authenticity, about just making meaningful jewelry. And I'm definitely, looking to have people understand, why I do what I do, and kind of that it's not just about business; it's also, so related to what I do and who I am personally. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Perfect. And there's a ton of great stuff. And I think I originally found you. I was just looking on like Instagram, looking up like stuff in Rhode Island, like local people trying to find stuff. And um, your business page came up, and I reached out, and luckily you were willing and responded, because that's not
Yeah,
always the case with a lot of
yeah,
people
yeah.
on Instagram. But I appreciate you coming out here, and I think we're gonna have a really great conversation and dive into some cool stuff. So, how I like to start off the podcast, I was telling you off podcast, but for any new listeners, I always like to kind of talk about family dynamic. And for you guys, I always like to explain like a little cliche of like, when we talk about family dynamic and like life stories, I feel like it's important to dive into this piece of the podcast, because when you talk about your family dynamic, I think, and in terms of a house, what's like the most important piece of a house is the foundation. And for better or for worse, I think our family is that. And I think everyone has different family dynamics. And I think it's important to at least give that opportunity to the guests to talk about their family dynamic and what it means to them, and kind of build off that a little bit, because we're talking about your life story. So, with that being said, with whatever you're comfortable with, could you go into your family dynamic?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to say that I'm very fortunate to have both my parents in the picture. My mom and dad are really great people. Always been supportive of what I do, even if it's things that they might not be exactly, agreeing with. I think they're good at trying to guide me in the right direction, and just trying to keep me on the right track. Um, and I have an older brother, um, and yeah, definitely can't. I have no complaints at all over family. I think it definitely helped me grow into the person I am today. um just being a stable family. Always we have our fights, and just like any family, but definitely fortunate to say that um I do have truly a good family dynamic. The only thing I do miss is that our immediate family is in Rhode Island. The rest are in other states, and we try to meet up when we can, but it can be definitely tough. So sometimes it can feel secluding being the only people in Rhode Island. We're kind of transplants here.
Mhm.
My mom's from Virginia, my dad's from Chicago, so kind of two opposite, not so opposite ends, but not really a car drive away. Some usually. Um, so I think that definitely had an effect on just having that, because my dad has a really big family. He has 11 siblings. So when everyone does get together, it's awesome. You don't need, it's just that's a party in itself. It's always I always look forward to it. My mom's family was great too. And But that's one thing I do miss that I wish would be different. Um, but that's just where we are today. We try to see each other when we can. Um, but yeah, definitely something that uh, what's been great about how it relates to my business and everything. It's really deeply rooted in my parents have a really cool design inspirations of just very minimalism, um, liking modern things. They actually both have a similar design sense. It's pretty similar. It's kind of cool because you see most parents have like way different styles, and they can be similar in a lot of ways. And I definitely took that from them. You know, just my dad's an engineer too, so it kind of you have that really clean. You know, everything's very precise, and I definitely took that with me. Um, and yeah, so I definitely take a lot of inspirations from them too.
Yeah. So were you born in Rhode Island? Did they come here first and then have you?
Yeah, so I was born in Rhode Island. Yeah,
Okay.
so I've
Yeah.
lived here all my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to build off that, and obviously thank you for going into that because I know it's not easy for everyone to just talk about family dynamics. It's personal. And I always like to thank my guests for doing that because you don't have to. But I really like the piece and relate to the piece of having both parents in the picture and like how that helped create like a good environment for you to kind of grow and learn and develop. And I know just from talking a bunch of different people that it's not the case for everybody, and like that there is difficulties in having whether it is a single parent household or your grandparents raising you or whatever it may be. But I really do think and I do advocate for like the families working together and being together, and like two parent households are pretty ideal, and I think they do benefit a lot of people if you're able to. And obviously things happen, like life's real, I always say, and you can't always predict those type of things. But I don't think I become the person I am without my parents both working together to like build off each other and build off each other's strengths too, and their weaknesses, and fill in the gaps where things need to like be filled. And I always accredit my parents for kind of having like a more I guess traditional like house structure. Like my dad was more of the breadwinner, and my mom elected to stay home and raise the children. And my youngest brother is autistic, so that was obviously played a role into that decision too. And my dad went back to college and worked his way up to get the job that he had, and also helped me get into the places that I got into because I always thank him for doing that. Like, who would have known him making connections that he did helped me make connections in my career to help me kind of start it, honestly. So you never know how that relationship could develop and how important it is to have those relationships within your family and have like a father figure or a mother figure or whatever, a two parent household. And I really just relate to that where obviously you have fighting, it happens. Like, I mean, me and my brothers always used to like beat each other up and stuff like that,
Hmm.
typical brother
Builds
stuff.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's just part of the dynamic of that. But I think the benefit is being able to see their relationship and try to like look to emulate that in my own, and also having the confidence to be creative, and them on some level believing in me because obviously you talk about doing something creatively, sometimes parents are like, "Mm, sure, that's a good idea,
Yeah.
like maybe just
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
go be an accountant or whatever." And obviously I'm an
Yeah.
accountant, but like the the push is sometimes always for safety when you're a parent, and I understand why in terms of careers and stuff like that. But them being together allowed me to be creative. That gave me confidence to not be afraid of like taking that leap because obviously there is that natural fear of just being afraid of what people are going to think of you for launching your business or launching a podcast. And you can't allow that to influence you to do that, and it's hard to overcome that, I know. But I think just thinking about it, obviously I think it stems from that upbringing and stuff like that. So I really resonated with that. And even the aspect of having a big family, like my family does like Carol reunions, and like people fly in from different places. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my family actually is from the Mass Rhode Island area. So like I do have that, and hearing you kind of talk about that made me actually kind of appreciate that a little bit more maybe than I would have like realized, and how maybe certain aspects it is isolating to not have your family or you have like your immediate family, but like aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents all in different places, and how sometimes that could be a little bit more difficult. And they always talk about like it takes a village to raise children, and like I could imagine like maybe some of the stress that your parents went through early on, like not having maybe people to rely on. Obviously
Hmm.
I'm just maybe just talking, but I think that kind of came to mind in that aspect. I want to build upon this though and dive into like childhood and stuff like that. Specifically, I wanted to dive into like hobbies, sports, like things that you did to kind of make friends, and I'll let you kind of go into that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think my first hobby, let's see, I definitely had some nerdy hobbies for sure, which then I was like kind of iffy about, but now I'm like, that's awesome, you
Yeah.
know? So for all the nerdy hobby, I really got into coin collecting. I was like Pokemon cards, that kind of thing, just collecting. And I thought it was so cool, like all the different things. And I definitely had some, like even some of my friends' parents who were into that stuff, they were kind of, helped me at first. And that was really fun. I played a lot of instruments. Well, not a lot. So I started with drum set and I really fell in love with that. So I started drums, I think, when I was like 11 or 12, and I did that through college. I was in elementary school, and I think I tried violin. Could not play the violin to save my life. Definitely other instruments I was good at, but violin was not it at all. But I found something. I knew I loved music, so that was really music was a really first like big inspiration that I still play a lot today. Um, and it really I think developed a lot of my character, with music, and that's how I got my emotions. That's how I got my thoughts across when I couldn't use really direct words speaking to somebody. Music definitely really helped me do that. I didn't realize how important that was until now. I'm like, yeah, that was my outlet. You have to find an outlet. I think everybody needs some sort of outlet. And music was mine. It was one of mine. I so in elementary school was that. And let's see, going into middle school, yeah, I still did percussion. I was in the band for Western Hills Middle School. That's where I went, and that translated to Cranston West and drumline. And to college, I was actually in drumline as well too. So that was definitely a big part of my life. And I started playing tennis in really elementary school. I was in the Cranston Parks and Rec League, which was awesome. It was really fun. I ended up actually working there after. And then I played tennis all through high school. Best decision ever. Um, it's what I love about it is that it's such a team sport and an individual sport, and you don't get that with every sport. So you can still focus on yourself, but also you have to realize you're on the team too. And that really got me a lot of lifetime friends, um, and I still tennis is a nice game because you can play it forever basically. Um, and also now pickleball's so popular. I have an advantage now in ping pong and pickleball. Playing tennis, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so those were my main things in growing up in school that I
Yeah.
that I like to do.
I think it's really cool to hear that too, and like seeing you talk about all the different things that you're kind of doing and how music was such an important aspect of your childhood and even obviously to now. Because like one of my questions that I was thinking of is like, what was like some of like the value or life lessons that you've gained through music? But like you kind of hit it on the head talking about just like helping you express emotions and stuff like that. And I think not everybody gets that, especially like being guys to like get that
Hmm.
expression
Sure.
and have that outlet. Because obviously back then, like you're thinking about like how boys are being raised and a lot of the stereotypes still existed back then and how we were in raised. And I've referenced on the podcast how like I was raised in like boys don't cry, you get up, like
Hmm.
especially like, playing football, like it's like there was a lot of that mentality. And I it wasn't until later in life that I learned how to like express myself and advocate for myself and know what certain emotions actually were and how they like felt. And to hear that you kind of were able to kind of tap into that a little bit with music, I think it's super interesting because I don't think everyone
Hmm.
gets that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely related to like when I did music, I definitely really aired towards the songwriting side. So I picked up guitar and stuff in college and the melodic, more of the melodic instruments. And having that drum background was kind of cool because it was weird learning piano from going from drums because like usually you're supposed to start on piano. It makes the most sense and blah blah blah. But I went to guitar and then piano and kind of singing just to because I love songwriting. And that to me was it was also about just having my own thing I could call my own. I think we related to that earlier in the interview, kind of where you want your own thing, and that was me having my own thing too that I can call mine. That's like and about who I am and why I do what I do, and I think it was a very powerful thing for me to be able to do that in that way. But yeah, definitely stemming off of that, yeah, music and whether it's drums or songwriting was definitely a big part.
Yeah, that seems honestly super dope to be able to have that and like it gives you a leg up in certain aspects too, of just like creatively and like how you can eventually learned to play different instruments, and I wish I was musically inclined. And I mean, I tried drums in like fifth grade, and then the
Hmm.
teacher was like, "We have too many people want to do drums, do trombone." And I was like, tried it for a few days. I was like, "Hell no, I ain't doing this," and like I
Yeah,
quit that. And I wish that I stuck with drums and had the opportunity to. And but it's one of those things where like, oh, we need someone to go do this, go do this, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do this. And
yeah,
also a little bit undisciplined in that play in that aspect. I was like, I'm not practicing this. Like, I don't want to practice this because part of the reason I didn't want to do trombone. So I was like, I'm not going to practice something I don't want to do.
yeah, yeah. When you choose an instrument, it's kind of like that's your not personality, but it's like if we gravitate towards if you do something else, it's like there's no connection there, you
Yeah.
know. So it must have been difficult to like want to yeah like want to practice if you don't even want to do it anyway.
Yeah, it
So
felt
yeah,
forced. And
yeah,
like, maybe I'm just thinking about this now. Like, anytime I feel like I'm being forced to do something, even when I was talking about like creatively how I want to do something right now and like do a new creative endeavor, but I'm not gonna force something. And like maybe that was like my first like indicator of like me not doing something that I was forced to do and just kind of gravitating towards my own things. Sucks that I mean I didn't get to learn an instrument, but maybe it was my first instance of like kind of standing up for myself in an aspect. Like parents weren't too happy about it, but like, hey, like I didn't want to do something I didn't want to do. And like, I mean, I'm very kind of people would say I'm pretty stubborn on certain
yeah.
stuff. Like if I don't want to do something, I'm not gonna do it. Like I'm just not that I don't want to try new things. I lean on the side of like I feel like I know myself where I just don't want to do that. Like if I don't want to do it, like why waste all this time? And like in my head I can go through like 1,000 different scenarios of like, all right, if I go do this and I have to spend this amount of money or I have to spend this much time and do X, Y, and Z and like and then I get home late or something, whatever it could be, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I run through all the fucking analysis in my head and I'm like, if it's not something I want to do and I can calculate that, I'm like, not doing it. So maybe I was doing that back then, but I do have that small regret of not being able to continue with drums because like
Mhm.
that would have been really cool. And just hearing you kind of go off all these different instruments and have this ability, like I said, I kind of envy that in some aspect. And then the interesting part too, when you mentioned like tennis, I've never really thought about that where it's like the individual sport, but also being a part of a team.
Mhm.
Like I played football, I played baseball, and baseball is probably the closest thing I could relate to that, even though I still can't really relate because like if I was a pitcher, maybe like I might be able to relate a little bit closer to that feeling. But like I thought that was like an interesting like point you kind of brought up of being able to kind of have that ability to learn those team working skills, but also be independent and like develop your own craft at the
Mhm.
same
Yeah,
time.
it was a cool mixture that I didn't feel like was in um yeah, I don't I'm sure there's other sports that are similar, but
Mhm.
it was cool to have that, you know. And actually originally I wanted to play hockey because all the friends in my neighborhood played hockey. My mom's like, "Hell no." And that was that. But I'm glad that I did like I don't regret doing it. It was definitely yeah, I don't regret it, but it was something that I didn't initially want to do. But once I did, I'm like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, and
So
especially you mentioned like now pickleball is blowing up. Like
yeah, yeah.
you
It's
get
not,
that
I'm like,
advantage.
yes, I have the edge now. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's crazy.
I still haven't done. I played a couple times with my dad. I remember my dad was playing not a long time, but he has like a work league that he would
Mhm.
play. My dad's like, I don't know, like I've been playing a while, and I'm like, well, Dad, I play tennis, you know. And then we played. It was like it took me a minute to get used to it. Once I got used to it, it was pretty cool. And we were pretty close, but
Yeah, I haven't
yeah,
tried it yet. I probably have to try to get into that at some point,
yeah,
especially now I'm getting hurt playing football. It's timeline, and I've always said with the guys, I'm like, we only got so many years left of this. Like the clock is ticking. Like you got guys having families and like one injury. I'm like, luckily it's my left hand and everything like that. Like for my right hand, I would have been cooked.
yeah,
But yeah, I have to start looking into other sports. Like I'm refusing to do golf. Like that, I'm
yeah,
people can hate me for it. I don't care. I'm anti golf. Like I'm just too slow for me. I've tried. Like, and also this part of me is maybe was like everyone does it. I don't want to do it because everyone does it, and like it's kind of
yeah,
lame. But
yeah,
um, when it's time, I'll probably get sucked into it eventually, just
yeah.
like everyone else.
Oh yeah, for me it was like, oh man, the clubs are a lot of money. I was like, this is an expensive sport, and like
Yeah.
I play with it a few times with my buddies, and I think it's pretty fun. But I don't think I would ever get into it enough to go alone and like and do it and
Mm.
do everything. So for me, it's a fun thing to do with my friends once in
Yeah.
a while, you
Yeah.
know, and know how to play at least a little bit. But other than that, I don't know if I don't know if I'd end up, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, it's not calling me yet. I'm trying to
Yeah,
that's why I'm hanging on to dear life for
yeah,
football, like, it's tough, it's tough. Even getting, like, guys to wanna come play anymore, it's like, oh, it's a thing, but,
yeah.
transitioning a little bit, I wanna start getting towards, like, that senior year realistically and, like, more or less, like, talking about, like, did you go to college? Did you not go to college? What was that path at that point in your life, and, what did you ultimately, decide to do?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think like a lot of kids in senior year of high school, and it felt like I didn't know this at the time, but I'm just like, I don't know, and like I chose marine biology because I'm like, I like the ocean, I like this stuff, I thought, okay, this is what the feeling has to be to want to do something. And I ended up, so I went to Nova Southeastern University. I had a great time. I went for a year and a half, I believe, almost 2 years, and then dropped out because I wasn't liking it. I didn't feel any connection to it at all, and I knew I had a connection to music, and that's what I was minoring in. Um,
Was it hard to drop out of that, like, make that decision?
I developed some really good friends that I still am in connection with, but now they're in Florida, and now I'm here, and yeah, so that college is in Fort Lauderdale. If you don't know what that is, it's a really small college, or university, but it was weird. I knew I had to do it, so I did it. And I think honestly the catalyst was organic chemistry, and I started taking that. I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't even like it. Like, what am I doing? Why am I gonna do this? And I was even hearing people say like marine biology is you're not, what I loved was the field work and all that stuff, but a lot of that type of, that career is not that. You can do that, but it's mostly you're writing papers, getting grants, that kind of thing, and that did not seem appealing to me at all. However, I thought this is what adult life is. You got to do it. You don't have to like your job, and that's the mentality I was kind of having. So I sucked it up. But then I realized, I really love music. I realized if I wasn't making a lot of money, that's okay if I do what I love, because I'm definitely more of an artistic, I guess, left brain, if you want to call it that, person. And these other careers were just like I wanted nothing to do with it. So, and I knew I loved music and art, and doing things with my hands was very satisfying to me. It always has been, and so I dropped out, and then I pursued a music degree at CCRI. By the way, CCRI, amazing school. I loved it. My teachers in the music department were amazing people, um, and I graduated with a music degree that I never used because now I do my business. However, it was an awesome skill. I don't regret any of it. Um, Definitely, it was more of a personal growth rather than career growth that I developed in college, which I believe is just as or more important than the degree itself. Um, but yeah, I did. Like I said, I definitely don't regret it. But I did not take the path that I chose in college at all.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud you for being willing to take that leap of faith and decide that, like, I don't wanna do this, like, same old path that everyone else is doing. This doesn't satisfy me. This doesn't appeal to me. And being willing to stick to your guns and make that choice. Because a lot of people, I mean, even including myself on some level, didn't do that. I didn't choose to like drop out or do something different or launch a business. Or obviously, you got there over time. But like in some aspects, like I envy that decision and being willing to do that and embrace what you truly do love. And like even your mindset, like if I make a little bit less money doing something I love, I'd rather do that. And I think that's something that you should be really proud of to have that mindset because not a lot of people are willing to do that or even have that mindset and like stand on it because people will say that, but then when shit gets tough, like a lot of people will fold and do that. And like obviously there's gonna be ups and downs, especially being a business owner. I can imagine like there's gonna be periods where it's gonna be really high highs and then there's other points where it could be really low lows. But the point is like you're doing what you love ultimately. And I think that's something that not a lot of people can actually stand on or stand for. And I think that's really cool that you mentioned that.
Mm.
Um, one thing you also mentioned was like the changing of the majors, and that's something that resonated with me because I was originally criminal justice,
Yeah,
and I think I originally wanted to get into maybe something police work or law enforcement or something like that. And um, I was in college around like graduated high school 2014, 2015. Like the way that law enforcement and the perception around it had changed a lot, and it didn't speak to me anymore. And I kind of pivoted like typical people do, and they look at, oh, I'm going to get a business degree. But I was like, I'm not just going to do a business degree just to get the standard. I'm going to be a business management degree or something like that. Like, I felt like I wanted to specialize in something. Cause math was always something I was drawn to. Like, don't say I love math. Like, that's not the truth. But I'm good at math,
Mhm.
and I like things that make sense in terms of like an equation. Like, I know 1 plus 1 is going to be 2. Like, it depends who you ask, I guess. But um, I like that aspect of like that stuff, and I don't like the calculus shit like that. Once you start throwing numbers and all that stuff, that's a little too much for me. But like straight up math, like accounting, like like when it was presented me that way, and my first like accounting class was like, it's the language of business, and I'm like, that's something I could use regardless, whether I stay in like a 9 to 5 lifestyle or one day launch my own business doing something completely different. At least I'll be able to understand like the financials or taxes, and like
Mhm.
that's like a real life skill that can
Yeah.
actually translate into
Yeah.
something that's like worth something, in my opinion, compared to like, oh, I can manage a business, or like, because like when like I have people that are in my life that have those type of degrees, and no shame towards it, but I'm like what is that? Like I my brain just doesn't wrap around that. Maybe it's the whole like analytical side of 1 plus 1 equals
I
2.
get it.
Like,
I'm the same way. I'm very analytical and I want things to make sense. So I'm definitely in agreement with you. It's like it seems too ambiguous.
mm,
And to me, I don't like that. I want to know exactly what that means, sometimes. And so I understand that part of it a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, and it's why accounting always drew me in. Like, you tell people you do accounting, it's like, oh, like number spreadsheets could never be me. But I'm like I was doing something today, like it was like a reconciliation, and like it was the first time in like a long time being like in like a 9 to 5 job, and like I'm learning too because I'm in like a new role.
Yeah.
But like I was kind of like excited to like figure it out, and like I was like skipping lunch a little bit. Like I'm like I'm gonna get this. Like, and like people weren't really helping me, and like they were just like sitting on the call and like, you're really doing this yourself. I'm like, I just needed someone to talk to, like talk through it,
Mm.
because like my whole team's like new, so like none of us really know what we're doing. We're just kind of figuring out,
Yeah.
which is part of the reason I wanted to be a part of it, because it's like we get to basically deconstruct everything and rebuild it,
Yeah.
and like that was
Yeah.
cool to me.
Yeah.
And but like today, I was just like putting the pieces together. It's frustrating. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, if you ever done a puzzle with like a ton of pieces, it can be really frustrating when you can't find the piece that you need to
Hmm.
like get the part done. But like having that aspect was like really cool, and I was like really excited about it. And that doesn't happen though if I don't make that decision to change majors and go into something. Maybe I thought it was going to be more practical at the time and like appeasing my parents in some aspect, but it was something that I did actually like doing. Like, I like numbers, and it was something that I was always good at and just kind of
Hmm.
leaned into it. Obviously, I eventually learned to reconnect with, like, I always say, like, my inner child and like my creative side, and I launched a podcast, wrote a book, and now I do this, and this is like my true passion. And I think having that piece to your life adds enormous value, and like I think it's even cooler when it's someone like yourself can take their passions and make it like their career, because that is one of the hardest things to do. And I truly value and respect people like yourself that are willing to take that leap and do that. And kind of want to build upon this too, and like talk about like, as you go to CCRI, you get the degree, what kind of happens after this, and like what decisions do you make, where do you go with your career, how do you get to eventually deciding to create a business?
So very spontaneous. I'll have to say I can be a spontaneous person sometimes, like with the hobbies and stuff. Sometimes I'll have this hobby. I'm like, I want to do it. I get everything to do it, and then maybe I'll do it for 2 weeks. Maybe I'll do it for a few months. Maybe I'll do it for a year, but nothing ever really stayed with me a long time. Um, but anyways, so I saw this after I graduated. And I was working as a caterer, and a couple other kind of part-time jobs, um, figuring out what I wanted to do. And I stumbled across this video on YouTube that was about someone creating a wooden ring on a lathe. If you don't know what a lathe is, it's essentially this tool that just rotates a piece of wood or other material, and you use a tool to basically cut into it, and to make round things. And I just fell in love with this process. I thought it was so cool. Like it was like for me, like you're creating this finite thing. You're using these tools to do it. It made sense to me. It clicked. and I was very intrigued by it at the same time. And a ring was so interesting to me because it's such on a minute scale. I've always loved miniature things for some reason. I can't tell you why. Um, and it, when I was looking at this video, they was putting these things in the rings, and the amount of customization you can do with this small object really fascinated me. And so I bought. Really, so what happened? So I ended up going in with somebody with this business. When I it kind of like I figured out I want to do this business, and that was really it. Like there wasn't like a waiting period. It was just this is what I want to do. And I went in with somebody, and then I eventually did it myself after, and then but still the whole time I was just so fascinated and passionate about doing it, and that's really what drove me to continue doing it. But it took probably 3 4 years before I actually opened a business. A lot of it was development. There was so much development involved in planning, and you can never do enough planning in a business. That's for sure.
What
Um,
kind of goes into that? You don't have to go into like a full detail if you don't want to, but
yeah,
like those 3 years, like what kind of stuff are you working on and like planning to eventually launch the business?
yeah. So mainly for me, it was developing the product itself. I opened a business with I think 5 or 6 ring styles, and that was it. But it was all focused on how the heck do I make this? How do I get good? And that was the most important part to me. Nothing else mattered at that point. Um, and then once I was starting to develop that, getting a good grasp on how to make them, it was really some planning about who might want this, how should I market this. But so obviously, knowing me now through this podcast so far, I don't have a degree in business or jewelry. So what the heck am I doing a business in jewelry? So I know nothing. Um, so I did as much planning as I realistically thought I should. Looking at videos and seeing what nuggets of information I took, out of it, what made sense to me, and how I can incorporate that. I'm very um, detail oriented, and that can also lead me to really dive into things specifically on not just the products itself, but like how do I register my business? How do I do these things that I need to start a business? And that to me was very difficult. Very difficult. If you don't know like already or talk to somebody, it was very hard to do it on my own. And I think it should not be. It was very frustrating when I was first starting, because you don't want that to be a barrier in someone starting the business and helping the economy. You want to make it easy and accessible for anyone to do it if they have an idea and want to do it. I feel like there was a lot of barriers. Once I knew how to do it, now I understand. But it blew my mind how difficult it was just to get some few simple things done. But a lot of it went into registering my business and making sure that it was good. But I am a person who I need to know that to be safe in the future. Like I don't want any problem in the future. I want my ducks in a row, if you want to call it that. Um, so I spent a lot of time with the registrations and figuring out what I need to know. Um, so a lot of time went into that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and the fact that you're willing to take the time to do those things, because especially when it's like your career, your actual business, you
Yeah,
want the legal side to like to mesh with where you could be in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years.
yeah,
Like, because especially who knows obviously what happens and like where your clients go and like your industry goes, like where you go, like you don't want any chance for something bad to happen,
yeah.
especially when it's your career and something could derail that.
Right, and I think especially as an artist too, there's so many artists where, and I'm included. Like I don't like doing it, but I realized through actually what my part-time job as a caterer, my boss, he was very knowledgeable in terms of how to run a business, and he did this all himself. Like I don't think he went to school for it or anything, but he did a lot of work, and he kind of gave me the right mindset of how to do it. And I remember the most important piece of advice he gave me, which I wouldn't suggest everyone take this advice, but it worked for me. What he said, just say yes to opportunities. Don't turn them down because you're scared. Basically, that was the point. Um, and that's not exactly relating to what we said, but it just popped in my head because it was an important part for me to start. Because that's how I started. I just said yes to someone to get my first thing, even if I didn't know exactly to the T what I was doing. I needed that to get the ball rolling, or else it might have been another 6 months before I started or whatever, you know. Um, but going back, sorry, what was the original thing that I was talking about? I kind of got lost track.
Kind of got lost, but I'm actually going to jump on
Yeah,
that
go
point
for it.
because, like, I mean, jokingly, I was talking about like just like don't say just do
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff, but like,
I know. I was thinking that too.
yeah, but like realistically though, like it really is included in that, and that what you were kind of talking about there really kind of resonated with how I like launched this was like it was like initial interest, but like at a certain point you just do it. Like you have to, and like I don't know, and maybe this is me realizing sometimes it's hard for guests to use other words than just do it, but like it takes something within you to like almost like otherworldly to like make that leap of
Yeah,
faith to just launch and like because there is that fear, and we were talking about this like on the podcast, off podcast of just doing something that is foreign to you and doing something that comes with risk, and whether it's financial risk or like what's the word, not like persona, but like how people perceive you, I guess, like that risk in terms of like creating content or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
It exposes part of you that like people don't see, and like that was also big for me. I don't know about you, but like you got to get personal if you have a business. Like originally, I was thinking about an online business only business, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, first of all, I wasn't working, and second of all, it's like if you want people to connect with you, you have to connect with people, you know. And that really forced me to grow personally of like being in front of a camera, or even if I'm not like the greatest at being in public or doing public speaking, you got to do it because it's okay to be uncomfortable, and that's a tough thing to kind of wrap your head around, and it is for me still too. But the more you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, the more you're going to grow. And I think that is so true. It's kind of a not cliche thing, but you hear it a lot, but it's so true. um and yeah, there's a big personal side to it because you're doing so many things that are unknown, and you got to still act like you know what you're doing, you know. um and that was a big part. That's a big part of business too. It's not just your product, or it's not just your service. It's a big part of, you're selling yourself too, you know. And that's I realized how important that is. It's a really cool thing to learn, but it's something I think that's also a necessity to be successful.
yeah, it's scary too. Like,
Yeah,
because like you said, you're selling yourself a little bit out there, and you even mentioned like connection, hence Carroll Connection. That's why the name kind of flowed. And
yeah.
joke off of it was like the name came from like playing flag football back in the day. Like
Oh yeah.
I used to like be a like start playing quarterback later on, and when I throw it to my brother, it was like one of like our indoor games or something like that, and he was like, "That's that CC, that's that Carroll Connection." So years later, when
Oh
I
yeah,
was
that's
thinking of
cool.
names,
Yeah.
like it kind of just came to me. I don't even know. I was like, that flows really well. Used to be the Carroll Connection, a social awakening. Like that was like my whole thing. I was into like the whole like hippie kind of like spirituality, psychedelic type vibe. And I was like, that's just too fucking wordy. Just drop that and just made it the Carroll
Yeah,
Connection podcast because that's what I would call it. So
yeah.
it came into that, but connecting with people is so critical in a time where social media is driving us to create these connections online. Not like it's bad, but like I always said, I've said this from like the beginning of the podcast, but like social media is an avenue of communication, but it shouldn't be the only avenue of communication or connection too. Like it can't be the only way you connect with people because people are real and they do value that in-person connection. And this is coming from someone who likes working from home and stuff like that. Like I do respect and understand that like eye contact is super valuable. It's like the human like species and like having that relationship, feeling the energy in a room. That's why I've only ever done in-person podcast because there's a certain energy within the room when you're having a conversation with someone. They have to sit across from you and like look you in the eyes and talk to you. Like that there's something to that. And it almost feels like not to knock people that do virtual podcasts because there's value in that in different ways, but like it feels somewhat soulless where you don't feel the energy. Like, and I just never resonated with that. It just felt like I was on a Zoom call or like a FaceTime. And
Hmm.
like, obviously, there's places for that, but nothing beats having like a legit conversation with someone in real life in
Yeah,
person.
I agree. I agree. That's definitely why. Yeah, I prefer like customer interactions. I want it to be in person. Like, you cannot like a phone call to me. You don't get the things you need. Like you can do it, and some people are better at doing it than others in terms of like getting the right, well, understanding what the person is saying and doing. But yeah, nothing beats an in person conversation.
Yeah, and especially when you have your own business, you have to put yourself out there and create those connections. And like you mentioned that with like the social media stuff, and we'll get to that in a second. But kind of want you to continue with like the creation of the business. We were talking about, I think it was like planning and like working on those 3 years, and you mentioned like kind of starting with someone. How scary was it to kind of start doing it all by yourself, or exciting?
It was both. I think it was a lot of both. I was very excited because I'm like, man, I'm doing it. Like, this is my passion. I love creating. I had the drive, and I still have the drive, but that initial drive is
Mhm.
so fun to have because it's like the world, is like you can do whatever. Um, it was definitely both. I think the latter of being scary hit me after realizing I have to make money. Truly, I gotta what things cost in a business. I did not truly grasp that. So whatever you think it costs, I think someone said, or I've heard this a lot, like times that by four, and that's what the true cost is about, running a business. And that part was scary. The financial part eventually got kind of scary for me, realizing what I need to do to keep this going. Because to me, I wasn't worried so much the financial would like, um, I guess I had such a need and passion to do what I do that was so within me that I wanted it to work. Not because I knew, not because I didn't think I could get another job or something. Like, I knew I could be okay financially, but it was more of I wanted to keep going what I have, and I don't want to lose that. And I wanted to do it full time, and that was my goal because I felt like this is what fit, So I did everything I needed to do to make it work. Um, so that also means there was a lot of pressure too.
Yeah, and I think the pressure is good too because it I don't think anything great comes without pressure
Mhm.
because you need that stress to really understand if like you're kind of built for it in some way. It kind of sucks that sometimes the stress and the pressure is required to be great or create great things, but I think a lot of things that are worth creating come from pain, come from struggle, come from those downtimes because that's when we're really kind of backed into a corner essentially, and we can really discover who we truly are. And
Yeah.
I don't create this podcast without being in that situation of like what the fuck, like what do I do, like who am I, like those essential questions. Like once you start asking yourself those questions, like I think it's almost like the first step into creating something amazing because like if you aren't asking yourself those questions, like you might be kind of in this like rut or this robotic pace of just doing the same thing because you're supposed to do it or you
Yeah.
think you're supposed to do it instead of like actually questioning why you do things. And you could do this in a variety of ways, like even in your just everyday job. They talk about improving processes in like whatever job you do. Like question things like why are we doing it this way? Like are we supposed like is there any value in doing it this way? Like why do we still do this? Oh, it's because this person did this 3 years ago and we just been doing it ever since. Like it starts with the questioning of things, and even questioning yourself of why you're doing things could spark that interest in chasing
Yeah.
your passion.
If you don't have a why, like what's actually, so I have a business mentor, right? Her name is Elizabeth Miner. And she actually wrote a book too, which is really good. And it was about kind of the emotional side of business and how to use your emotions effectively. And that's kind of the lost side of business, not just analytical, but it's also looking at how to use your emotions effectively. Anyways, but she really, like, she was telling me, like, this is also in her book, the why is what's going to drive your business and keep it, that's going to sustain your business as fuel, and you can get there on initial passion, but that's not going to sustain you. So it's kind of your point, like, you have to have a why, or else it's going to be monotonous, and you're going to get lost in it. Um so yeah, I really had to find the why. It wasn't like the I really, go now. I'm almost, I can't remember how long I'm doing this, almost 3 years of being open, and I'm already like, that initial drive is not there anymore. And that's fine. That's just natural. You know what I mean? But now you're sustaining it through other means. And that why is very important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like the initial drive when I started this, like that's not there anymore. It's solely based off of like why I started this, and like my second ever episode. I recently kind of posted about this on Facebook, more or less, in my story on Instagram and stuff. And I posted a YouTube video. But my second episode was with my late grandfather at the time, and he was diagnosed with brain cancer like shortly before we did our episode. So like it was terminal. He knew he was going to pass away, but he was a big believer in me kind of like launching the podcast. And like he had this business with his wife in I believe it was Cranston, and it was Art and Souls Gifts, and they supported local artists and like would sell like stuff in their shop and like really like advocate for local artists. And I was really geared towards like promoting that type of stuff, and I still am obviously, but nonetheless, the point being was getting that honest conversation with someone I loved and like recording that and getting to have that. And it was before I had video, so I didn't get that chance to record it on camera, but I had the audio and I could forever hear his voice talking about like growing up and like creating the business and what it was like dealing with cancer, knowing that he was going to pass away, getting those in-depth like thoughts that not everyone gets to save and record. And he said something so valuable was, if you're doing something that you don't like doing, you want to do something new, is to take a chance. And like I even got it like tattooed on me with his signature. And like I actually went back and I took, because I made like I always like try to do this for someone in my family passed away, is like take all the photos and make a collage out of it, because I just like going through the photos and stuff like that. But I had over like 200 something photos, and I'd been sitting on it for a while, and I was just like, he deserves his video or a podcast on YouTube too. So I took all the photos and put the audio behind it and just uploaded that to YouTube. And some photos people maybe have never seen or haven't seen in a while, and I shared that. And um, that was like a reminder of like why is like you never know. Knock on wood, like nothing bad ever happens to someone that's on the podcast, but like I feel like the value is always, I'm providing this for like your family, your friends, your audience, and like we're getting the value real time, obviously. But like whatever happens, like you're getting able to talk about your passions, your whys, like what you've gone through, and that gets to live on forever. And obviously, as long as the internet exists and stuff like that. But I don't take that lightly. Is like I get to help carry people's like legacy, and like my grandfather's legacy is written all over this, and like I get to carry that forward, and he's like part of this. He's always going to be a part of this, and that part is like the big reason why I always keep doing this. I always try to go back and listen to that and remember like the why, because like you said, that initial fire, it burns out, so you have to have something more than that.
Mhm.
And that is just like a big piece of it. Pivoting and building, because we're getting towards like the back of our conversation here, but like talk to me about growing the business, how it's been since the beginning of it. Obviously, getting ready to launch it is such a difficult task. Launching it and then continuing to build it to get to the place where you are and wanting to sustain it.
Yeah, good question. It's a definitely a different journey for everybody. For me, um, one thing that I kept that I will probably keep. I don't know how long I will keep it, but it was a big factor with me was doing in-person shows. You get to connect with people. There's so many benefits to it. You get to connect with your actual local community. You get to ask questions. There's a limited amount of audience. You get to ask questions. You get to develop your products, um, and you get real feedback on your work. And that was my way of marketing. I did online marketing and Instagram, and I still do Instagram, and I think it's a great resource. But for my business personally, I didn't connect with Instagram to get my passion across. It was always in person. I think it relates to what we were saying before. In person, I find that so much better. Um, and I think if I didn't have those in person markets, I wouldn't feel satisfied with what I'm doing, and I wouldn't have the same products. The products wouldn't be curated as as good. I don't think. Um, So a lot of that was just consistently. I do markets every weekend basically, and it's a lot of work, but I realize it's what I need to do. So a lot of it's consistency. Even on the days you might not feel like doing it. It's like, too bad. This is what you chose. It's not too bad, as in you should always work, even if you're really feeling like you should take days off. I'm not the person that should advocate for like, or that advocates for working until you don't even want it anymore, because then you don't want it anymore. You know, and a lot of business owners that happens. It's burnout, and there was some moments where I was approaching that. Um, and that's a tough thing to deal with because you got to make money, but you also have to prioritize your mental health because that's just as important as a product, because you are the product in a business, um, and especially with the businesses like you're making things like you are that, but your hands are touching it, you're doing this, and that's the product of you. So you are also important. You got to take that into consideration. That's still something I'm working on. Um, but really doing those markets was really helped sustain me, really learning to listen, like truly listen to people, even if you have your own opinion. Don't shut it off and just pretend like you're listening, like truly listen to people. And I think that really helped me develop and see things from more angles to help me in my business. So I listened to everybody. I didn't care who they were, what they were saying, and if it was, unless I have certain boundaries
Mhm.
obviously, but if they were, even if they didn't like my work, I would ask, why don't you like it? What's going on, what do you think should improve? I asked every show, I'll ask those questions, and that really, I think, helped develop products that I like but also the community likes. It's a good balance of, I'm still not compromising on my what I like to do, but I'm also giving people things based off of my designs that people will also like. um so a lot of it was those inhuman or those human, in-person interactions, which helped me grow and learn. And one other little thing too that someone taught me is that if someone doesn't know something, chances are they know someone who will. And that is, I've never seen a truer statement. It's always the case. It never fails. And then kind of leads towards don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, the worst people could say is no. Um, and like I said, if they can't answer, they probably know someone who will. And that really helped me grow as well and learn things I never would have learned and did things I never would have done. Um, but in terms of actual finite things that help me, were the markets for sure. Always developing. Don't stay stuck. You have to pivot. Pivot's also a big word, and as you know, in business, and it's very important to keep on your toes. Not lose who you are, but don't be afraid to change in a different direction. Um, Originally, I only did rings. I had, like I said, 5 or 7 styles, and I realized that wasn't, I knew other companies who were doing that. So what else am I going to do? Pendants, earrings, um, cufflinks, those kind of things. Taking on custom work, even though it's hard and it's a lot more work. Um, Not being afraid to really dive into my niche, um, and really hone in on a niche because, like in Rhode Island, there's a lot of jewelry artists. That's awesome. I love it. And but you don't want to get lost in that. You also want to have your own name within that and use the community to your advantage and vice versa, and build something uniquely your own. And that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work to build your own style. Um, and one thing that uh, I really learned to do was don't be afraid to really lean on the business side too. It's not going to take away from who you are. Like there's ways of doing that without taking away from who you are. So really getting super polished website, um, going to networking events, um, getting mentors, actively helping out in the community and getting to know your community. Um, a big thing, a big advocate. There's this program called E for All, and it's a free program. You have to get juried in, but it gives you starting business advice and mentors. And I was a part of that program, and which really helped me. I wish I joined it sooner. I joined it after I started. But now I'm a mentor for that program, so I really do believe in it. And that was my way of also trying to give back to community, to volunteering to mentor for this program, and I love it. So that was a big step for me, and that really helped me be confident in what I was doing. But I think there's, each individual business journey is going to be so different. But I think those main things of, yeah, just um, not being afraid to lean in on something you might be uncomfortable with, and not being afraid to ask questions, and being driven, and not being it's okay to be uncomfortable. Those things combined, I think, are the main things that really help me.
Yeah, and I think you said a lot of great stuff there. And piece that I really want to hit on is the mental health stuff, but the aspect of if someone doesn't know, they definitely probably know someone that does.
Hmm.
That just hearing that, like, I don't know if I've ever heard it phrased that way or just even said, but like it's so true. Like I'm even just thinking about like work stuff. Like if anyone says something like do you know how to do this? No, but ask this person. Like someone's always going to refer you to
Yeah,
someone else. Maybe it could be partially they don't want to do it in terms of like a work thing, but like
sure.
someone's always going to have an answer for you in terms of pushing you off to someone else, and maybe that creates a connection that's even better than what you thought could have been. But the mental health piece is so valuable because like there's so many times where I was doing this podcast and I started to feel burnout or didn't want to do it anymore, especially early days, like probably like sub like 150 episodes. Like obviously this is 227 and I've been doing it like just about we're on year 7 now. Um that you're recording, like trying to record every week, and if a guest cancels or whatever reschedules, I would do a solo just to get a content like or episode out there to make content, and you're just making content to make content rather than having something that's meaningful. And I think back then it was worth doing because it was like a muscle that probably needed to be worked at that time. But as I've kind of grown with this, like I don't do solos unless I really feel like I need to. Like I do like a birthday reflection every year. Like that one's super valuable to me. Or um, sometimes I'll just do a topic if like I haven't done an episode in a little bit and something really calls to me. If it doesn't call to me, I'm not doing it. And the true aspect of like taking breaks and like respecting like I'm just tired. I've been doing like podcasts for X number of years, or I've been crushing it for the last 6 months, almost every week doing an episode. Like I'm not booking an episode this week, or the week after this is Thanksgiving. Like I'm not doing that one because it's hard to get guests, and I've learned that over the years. And like any point from like November on, like I don't worry about getting guests. Like it's not. I'm cranking it out at the beginning of the years and all that stuff. Like, but it's also sometimes people are coming back from the holidays or coming back for the holidays, so you can get new people that you might not always get. So like
Hmm.
it varies, but like respecting like yourself to know that you need a break, because I know so many people that have created podcasts that I've been friends with over the years that burned out and stopped doing it, and like it's not even a podcast anymore. But like I've created a structure and a style that really represents me, and it goes back to what we said earlier. I have a why. Like I can keep going because I know why I started. And maybe one day this becomes something else or stops because life gets in the way and things happen, and I pivot. But I'm still able to do this because I created a why that's actually like internally it like represents who I am. And it's related to my values and related to something that actually means something. And I was telling you like off podcast, like I don't care if this never goes viral, if this never blows up, if I don't make money off this, because that's not why I started. Because so many people get into their business or their content or whatever it is for the wrong reason. And sometimes it works for them, but like for most people, you're going to probably burn out and fail at it, because if you're not doing it for the right reasons and it doesn't represent you authentically, probably going to fail and you probably should not do that thing. So I think that kind of sums up that piece. And we're getting towards that back part of the podcast where I do have another question for you. But I want to ask this is what do you have coming up for your business, and what are like kind of like your plans for the future?
Yeah, good question. So it's kind of immediate things that are coming up. A couple shows that I'm excited about. The first one is December 6th, I believe. On a Saturday, I'm actually hosting a show at a jewelry store called Green River Silver in Wickford. So we're doing a show, a week long show, and it ends with me being there on the Saturday. I don't normally do collaborate with other jewelers in that way, so it was pretty fun because I think we connected in a good way, the owner and I, and the manager, and I think it's gonna be really fun. And also another show after that, the on the next weekend is the Providence or the PVD Artisan Show, hosted by Mike Bryce, who's a really awesome artist out of Providence. It's a really nice, holiday gift, event where you can get holiday gifts and see local artists. Really good, authentic vibe, and I really like that at the Waterfire Arts Center. So those are the two immediate things that are coming up that I really like. Um, I just released a new collection last week, so kind of backstepping a little bit, but I'm really excited about it. It's very I'm very I've always been inspired by geometry. So in elementary school you had those like colored shapes that you put
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
I was obsessed with those. I don't know what I'm like. I really realized looking back, I'm like, man, I was obsessed with those things. I'm like, holy crap! Like this is what I'm doing, just in adult form. You know what I mean? And but anyway, that collection is kind of really based off of that very geometric, clean, minimal, high end, and I've really spent a lot of time curating that collection. It's called the Atrium Collection, based off of just window structures and geometry. And that was a first collection that was very, I'm proud of everything I do, but this one I was particularly proud of. It really embodies, I think, who I am and who the business is. Um, so that I just released, that I was pretty excited about, and future plans, doing collection releases like that, maybe once a year, possibly twice a year. Um, and so I currently have a retail store in Warren, 450 Main Street. And my goal tentatively right now is to stay next year and keep that going. Um, but I'll definitely announce all of that information. And I definitely want to grow organically. I think my overall goal is to, if I grow larger, which I plan to do, hire people out of the community as opposed to automating things. I think that's a very important thing that's close to me. Keeping it authentic, making sure I also like what I'm doing, and just growing organically. And the community's been great to me so far. And I just hope it keeps on the same trend. I think with everything I'm doing, I'm giving it my best shot. And I'm hoping for, every year to be even more successful.
Awesome. I love that. And I love hearing that. And I really do see like a lot of success for what you're doing. And it just comes off like authentically. Like I know we've kind of hit on that word a lot, but
Hmm.
that's kind of the energy that you kind of brought to this. And I think that you really embody that in your work. And I think it's going to resonate with people, especially when you're going out and like doing all the things that you've been doing. So like I mentioned off podcasts, I do have that last question related to passions, but I always like it to give people a chance. Like if there's anything we missed that you wanted to say, or if you're ready to just go into that last question, totally up to you. So do you have
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to say?
I think the last thing that's kind of important, I think, also it kind of embodies the podcast too, is like, what is my why? And I didn't realize my true why until I think like last month. I always thought it was because I love design, and it is, that's part of it. But really the big why is, growing up, I've always had, anxiety, OCD, and that really affected a lot of my life. And I realize now the why is that people with anxiety and other mental health things going on, it can be difficult to do certain things, and there's definitely it can look as an impediment to certain things. I've really found, I think, the advantages in it, and my goal is showing people with other mental health things that you still can start a business, like the kind of the stereotypical business person. You don't need to be like that. You know what I mean? You can go in an authentic and non-salesperson way and still create a very good business. Not that it's going to be easy. I think I found a lot of challenges doing it, but you can also make sure you utilize your advantages of what makes you different, and people will see that. So I think my true why is showing myself and other people that that's not going to stop me from being a business person. And that was a really powerful thing for me to learn. And it'll definitely be my why and why I do what I do from now on. Even if it was subliminally before, I know what it is. So that was an important thing for me to know and share.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely resonate with a lot of that, and just kind of I think I try to like talk about this in my book of like I'm not anyone crazy. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist or whatever. I'm just your average everyday person that is telling you stuff that you could find on Google. Like I just put it all into one place because this is the stuff that I felt like represent a meaningful life, and like put it in like a readable format. Like anyone can create anything. It's just, are you willing to do it? Like it requires a certain level of effort and consistency and hard work that not everyone's willing to meet, but I think anyone can meet if they're getting themselves ready for the challenge almost. But
Hmm.
Lincoln, my last question for you is, what would your advice be for someone who wants to pursue their passion?
I think it definitely relates to kind of my why, is don't let perceived barriers stop you from doing what you want to do. If you have a goal, um, everyone is going to have their own path, and don't compare yourself to someone else's success because you're never going to achieve that person's success because you're different from that person. You know what I mean? You can achieve your own success in a different way, and don't let that stop you from even trying.
Perfect. I think comparison's the thief of joy, and like too many people quit because they start comparing themselves to other
Hmm.
people, and like I've been a victim of it in terms of just like social media is the worst, and you see other people doing podcasts that blow up really quickly, or maybe you see another person doing jewelry and you're like, damn, I wish I could get like that with that
Hmm.
many followers or whatever. And like that's their journey. That's not your journey. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be you're on the path you're meant to be. And I truly believe that. And I just trust in that, whether it's spiritually or if you're religious, whatever you believe in, just like trust in the path that you're on is the one that you're supposed to be on. And like when things are gonna happen for you, they're gonna happen for you. Just don't worry about it. Just do the things that you're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing and let the rest fall into place. Cause all you can do is control what you do.
Mhm.
And I'm big believer in that type of stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people say, like, when they see me, they're like, "Oh, you're so talented." I'm like, "I appreciate it, but it was not talent." Like, my first ring, I kept it. It is a block of wood with a hole in it with jagged edges on the. It's a solid piece of wood this thick, and that wasn't talent. You know what I mean? That the talent was from years and years of dedicated work and consistency. Whether anyone can do it, I don't know, but like it wasn't anything, I don't think, natural. It came from hard work. And if people realize that too, they can realize that anyone can do a certain thing. Like you were saying before, if you just have the consistency and do it, you have a good chance of getting there.
you're gonna beat most people if you're consistent. It's
Yeah.
just a fact. Like all this, the podcast setup that I got, I didn't have this day one. If you go all the way back on my Instagram, it is like a snack tray, dinner tray in my
Yeah.
parents' basement in my bedroom with the microphone box on it and my laptop next to it, and that's what I recorded my introduction on.
Yeah.
Like that's how it started, and that's how it's supposed to start. It's supposed to look messy and dirty and look like a struggle. Like it's gonna be like that. It's very rare that you're gonna blow up day one. Like it usually doesn't happen for most people, and if it does, they usually can't sustain it. But
Mhm.
regardless, Lincoln, I appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing your life story with me and talking about your business. I think this has been a great podcast, and I seriously do appreciate you for coming on here.
Yeah, man. I had a really good time, and I definitely appreciate what you're doing, and I definitely relate to it in a lot of ways. So I'm glad to see other people have that same mindset too.
Yeah, it's always about the connection, and we're both trying to do things and similar things in different ways. And I've seen that through the podcast. Is like it's always about connecting and helping others, but it's always about doing it in a different way that really resembles who the individual is as a person. And I think that's great. But if you want to look into that camera, you
Yeah.
could plug in, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So you can type in ARC Wood Jewelry, Arcwood Jewelry, same name on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And then my website is arcwoodjewelry.com, and where you can find where all the events I'll be at. And you can also see my retail store location in Warren. So yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And for you guys, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check out the carolconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carol Connection or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at the Carol Connection. We'll set that up as well as plugging the 5 pillars to create a meaningful life. Only available on Amazon. And if you like the book, and you read it, please submit the review on Amazon. It goes a long way in the algorithm. So, till next time, guys, peace.